tier list. Everyone's made a tier list about something at some point, I'm sure. For me, I decided I was going to make a tier list over all the guns in Fortnite, asterisk. I left out mythics and exotics because I plan to make a mythic and exotic tier list separately, because it's pretty obvious that I would just put most of the mythics and exotics in A or S tier. So it makes more sense to make their own tier list rather than put all of them into one. It also gets kind of weird since some guns have mythic as an extra rarity and some have them as a separate weapon, and that's the case with a lot of guns like the prime shotgun, the auto shotgun, the striker pump, stinger SMG, those kinds of guns that just have mythic rarity as an extra rarity to the base weapon. Those aren't included on this list. I also included all of the melee weapons that aren't mythic or exotic. I don't think there's any exotic melee weapons. I also included some items that are functionally guns, such as the flare gun, the harpoon gun, tow hook cannon, those sort of things. And I also disincluded any gun that doesn't deal damage, so the shockwave launcher isn't on this list. So anyway, with all of that being established, let's get started. F tier. Everything in F tier, generally speaking, are guns that are just horribly outclassed or fill a niche that is rarely ever needed. Starting off with the bottom of the tier list at 152nd place, the makeshift revolver. The makeshift revolver is just, strictly speaking, the worst gun in Fortnite. Makeshift revolver comes from Chapter 2 Season 6, and the whole premise behind it is that you would collect either bones or mechanical parts and craft the makeshift revolver into either a primal pistol or a revolver. So even taking crafting into account, it doesn't even craft into that amazing of weapons, especially in a season where the revolver was definitely not the meta, especially with bows being in the game. Even isolating the makeshift revolver by itself, completely disregarding crafting or the season that it was in and just looking at objectively against everything else, what does this gun offer that other guns don't offer in a much better package? I mean, really think about it. The makeshift revolver is a worse version of the revolver, and the revolver is a worse version of the hand cannon, and the hand cannon is a worse version of the mammoth pistol. That's 3 layers of guns that are just much better than the makeshift revolver. I really can't even think of a reason that you would use the makeshift revolver outside of, I found this early game and it's better to use as a weapon than the pickaxe. And even that's debatable sometimes. At 151st place, we have the kinetic boomerang. The kinetic boomerang is just bad. It only does 60 damage upon hitting, and it has no chance of a critical hit or anything like that. It is infinite ammo, which I guess is good. It can go through structures, but only in very specific scenarios where you throw the boomerang off to the side of a structure, then stand behind it and pull it directly towards you again. And that's cool that you can do that, but it's so incredibly hard to pull off that it's really not worth it. 150th place is dual fiend hunters. They're dual pistols, except they deal less damage, are not burst fire, are semi-automatic, and their entire reason for existing is just to kill zombies faster, which is not that good of utility at all. They perform terribly against structures, they perform terribly as a shotgun follow-up because they pull out slowly. There's just not a really good reason to ever use dual fiend hunters other than this is what I got early game and let's make it work. 149th, Primal Pistol. The Primal Pistol is cool in concept, and that goes with a lot of burst weapons. I feel like the Primal Pistol would be so much better if it had first shot accuracy, and it had blooms similar to the burst assault rifle, but because it doesn't have that, it just suffers so much. Because of its lack of first shot accuracy, it's just terrible at long range, which means you have to use it at closer ranges where an assault rifle would be significantly better. You could use it as a pump shotgun follow-up similar to pump revolver, but it would be better just use a revolver than to use the primal pistol. You also have to craft it from a makeshift revolver, which means you have to carry a makeshift revolver, which automatically docks points. And even just looking at it by itself, it's really not that good of a weapon. It only does like 88 maximum damage headshot. It's just really not worth your time, unless again, that's literally all you have. In 148th place, we have the makeshift bow. Not too surprising. It only does 52 damage body shot, and it's a bow, which means it's very difficult to hit shots with. I know some people are just amazing at hitting shots with bows, but 99% of Fortnite players, it's a no. You craft this into either a mechanical bow or a pommel bow, which are both better in every single way. This was literally designed to be bad, and it succeeds at being bad. At 147th, it's the Recycler. Chapter 2 Season 6, I think, is infamous for being one of the worst seasons of all time, just because of how many bad weapons were in the loot pool. The Recycler is our first explosive weapon on this list. It deals between 75 and 83 body shot damage with a tiny explosion radius, and instead of using rockets or any normal form of ammunition, you have to suck up random props from around the map to reload it. Now this would be fine if you could suck up builds, because you know, you could just like place a wall real quick and then suck it up and boom, you have a new shot in your Recycler. But it specifically does not work on player-built structures. The suction still deals damage to structures, it just won't suck it up and turn it into ammo. Honestly, it's really just not worth the effort of trying to use the Recycler in any capacity. At 146th place, we have the tow hook cannon. This might be pretty controversial since it is just brand new, but let's be honest, why are you carrying a tow hook cannon into late game? The tow hook cannon's entire purpose is to just hook onto cars and then ride behind them like you're riding a shark, which is cool in concept, but you are incredibly vulnerable while you're doing that. Like, it is so easy to just spray someone from the passenger seat who's using a tow hook cannon on you. I really only ever carry the tow hook cannon in Team Rumble because it does 100 damage a shot, so that if someone lands on me, I can just quickly switch to this and instantly kill them, which it's really cool that it actually deals some solid damage, but you're never using this. Like, really, you are just never using this. There's so many better things to be carrying other than a tow hook cannon, because its use is so niche. It also has a very finite range, so you can't even like snipe people from across the map with this thing or something stupid like that, because the projectile just immediately falls after a certain distance, like some Looney Tunes ass shit. 146th place might be a little harsh, but I really never would consider using a tow hook cannon into the end game. And I have a similar sentiment with 145, the Ripsaw launcher. The Ripsaw launcher is better than the tow hook cannon since its niche use is actually somewhat useful most of the time, that being that it just rips through structures. I imagine the Ripsaw launcher could be very, very annoying to deal with in a competitive setting, since it just constantly deals structure damage once it's fired, and there's literally no way to stop it other than to just let it roll through everything and then place the wall again. But similar to the tow hook cannon, there's really no reason to be carrying a Ripsaw launcher into endgame, especially because the ammo on a Ripsaw launcher is finite. And also, there are a lot better guns to be using for just destroying structures than the Ripsaw launcher. Cool in concept, but definitely not worth the effort to use. At 144th place, we have the Sideways Scythe. The Sideways Scythe is our first melee weapon on this list, and it is just terrible. Its main gimmick is that whenever you hit someone, you heal Siphon, which is cool, and it's very appreciated because that makes it a little bit better, but its range is really small, dashing with it barely speeds you up, and it doesn't last for very long. It is incredibly hard to aim at your opponent with it because of all the jumping and slashing around that you do with it, and it really just isn't worth the inventory slot. It'd be better to just carry a sniper rifle or some other utility item than to carry a Sideways Scythe. Even in zero build, I imagine the Sideways Scythe would just kind of be a bit of a nuisance, sort of like lightsabers, except what makes lightsabers good is that you can block with them. You can't even do that with the Sideways Scythe, so for that reason, it just gets all the way down here in F tier. At number 143, we have the 6-shooter. The 6-shooter is our third pistol in F tier, which just goes to show how terrible pistols can be. Trust me, there are a lot better pistols on this list, and they get pretty high placements. But the 6-shooter definitely ain't one of them. The 6-shooter's whole gimmick is that you hip fire it and it shoots fast, and then you aim in and it shoots slow. It's cool, and we have other guns that are like that, such as the pulse rifle. But what makes the pulse rifle good is the fact that hip firing does low damage at a high fire rate, and aiming down sights makes it deal high damage at a slow fire rate. The 6-shooter deals the same amount of damage regardless if you're hip firing or aiming in. Its accuracy is also kind of poor, and because of its 6-shot capacity, it really just suffers. At number 142, we have the Chimera Ray Gun. This is the first SMG on this list, and you might be surprised that it's not the makeshift SMG. Don't worry, we'll get to that when we get to it. The Chimera Ray Gun is just so bad. Its only real use is in zero build, since nobody can really build against it. And for that, it's okay. Since it's an SMG, it has really sharp damage falloff, which means that it's already low damage of 9, 10, and 11 for rare, epic, and legendary rarities is reduced to 6 damage in rare rarity. It goes down from 9 to 6. At its maximum range of 75 meters. Couple that with the little charge up it has to do before it even can start firing, and there is no world in which the Chimera Ray Gun is the meta, unless you're playing something like Sniper Shootout. I just don't really get how this could ever be good without just straight up buffing the damage. And I don't think they're ever going to do that, because I don't think they'll ever unvault the Chimera Ray Gun, and thank God. At 141, we have the crossbow, and at 140, we have the Fiend Hunter crossbow. I put the crossbow below the Fiend Hunter just because the Fiend Hunter at least has the faster fire rate between the two and has a niche use in eliminating zombies. Otherwise, these two are just really bad. The crossbow does 65 and 68 damage in rare and epic with a fire rate of 0.9. That damage is not justifying that fire rate at all. I can deal over 65 damage in a couple shots from any assault rifle faster than this thing can get off a second shot. Couple that with kind of annoying bullet drop, and a projectile that's very difficult to see, which sounds great, but then you realize that you're supposed to be adjusting for bullet drop, so if you can't even see what you're shooting, you can't even tell if you're high or low. And the Fiend Hunter crossbow has a similar problem. It does 50 damage at a fire rate of 1.8, which that fire rate is respectable, but the damage just isn't high enough to justify the low fire rate. It also has a lower headshot multiplier, which means that it only does 75 damage headshots. But again, it has a faster fire rate, so at least you can out DPS a crossbow, I guess. And again, it has the niche use of quietly getting rid of fiends really easily. Which, I mean, fiends can be good for loot, so there's that. Plus, they both have infinite ammo, but there's a reason they sit in F tier. They just suck. At 139, we have the Harpoon Gun. The Harpoon Gun is good for one thing and one thing only, and that is fishing. Using the Harpoon Gun as an actual gun can work, but it's very difficult to hit someone with a Harpoon Gun since it has a very slow projectile and very low range, and it only has 10 shots. It does one-shot wood walls, which is really useful in certain situations, but being realistic, you're not carrying a harpoon gun into endgame. At 138, we have the makeshift rifle. The makeshift rifle is the assault rifle, but worse in every possible way. It deals the exact same damage, but has a lower fire rate and lacks first shot accuracy. The only thing the makeshift rifle is good for is crafting it into an assault rifle or a primal rifle maybe. Using it by itself is pretty pointless, but if you're gonna do it, at least use it as an SMG and don't expect it to be good beyond medium range. At 137, we have the Primal Bow, followed by 136, the Primal Stink Bow. Primal Bow is just the mechanical bow, but worse. The Primal Bow doesn't one-shot headshot, the mechanical bow does. And then the Primal Stink Bow also doesn't one-shot to the head, but it's supposed to make up for that because it has the Stink Cloud, which, okay, if you hit a headshot and you let the Stink Cloud tick twice, which is decently probable, it is an insta-kill. But using the Primal Stink Bow how it's supposed to be used, which is a long-range stink bomb, it doesn't work. I've talked about this in previous videos, but the stink cloud on the Primal Stink Bow is just way too small. What's good about the stink bomb is that you throw it on someone's box and the cloud engulfs the entire box. The Primal Stink Bow barely gets half of it, and it's not like you can shoot it into the center of the box. You're almost always going to be hitting the side, which means if your opponent is not on that side of the box, you're not dealing damage. You also can't stack the effects of a stink bomb, so if someone's taking damage from a stink bow, and then you shoot another one at them, and only hit them with the cloud, if they're still in the first cloud, it doesn't matter that they're in the second cloud too. It just makes it a little bit more difficult for them to get out of. It's okay for storm surge damage, but I can't think of a scenario where I'd want a Primal Stink Bow more than a sniper rifle or any of the other bows. At number 135, we have the Charge SMG. That's right, I'm putting the Charge SMG as lower than the Makeshift SMG. Give me a scenario in which the Charge SMG is good, other than camping a corner. Really, give me a good example of the Charge SMG being a better SMG than any other SMG for any scenario that isn't camping a corner, because I can't think of one. And hell, even if you are camping a corner, if you're playing builds, all the opponent has to do is turbo build a floor and ramp, and they're fine. They take maybe 50 health of damage before they can react to you, and then they're just turbo building a wall and a ramp, and you're no longer able to deal damage to them. And unlike something like a Stinger SMG or a Machine SMG or anything like that, you can't just spray until they build and then start pickaxing, because once you charge it up, it doesn't stop spraying until you switch to another gun. But you're probably not thinking of that. You're probably thinking, okay, let's just blow the entire magazine because I got it all charged up already. And then you're just out of ammo in your SMG for the rest of the fight. It is nice that it reloads really, really fast, but come on. When are you ever actually using a Charge SMG unless you're like quad spraying someone's box in squads? It's just really, really bad. Rounding out the top of F tier, we have 134, the Ranger Assault Rifle. The Ranger Assault Rifle is my least favorite assault rifle of all time. It has 1 point of extra damage compared to the regular assault rifle and has a slower fire rate. It also only has 25 rounds in the magazine, and while it is more accurate than the assault rifle, it's barely so. I just really have a bad taste in my mouth when it comes to the Ranger AR, because they buffed this like one time during Chapter 3 Season 1, and then never thought to themselves, huh, nobody's using the Ranger AR. Maybe we should change something about it so that it's actually good. Maybe buff the fire rate. I don't know. Nope. They just left it alone for an entire 3 seasons, never removing it, and then they vaulted it forever, and I'm happy. It always was just clogging up the loot pool. I struggle to find a scenario in which I'd rather have a Ranger Assault Rifle than a Scar. I struggle to find a scenario where I'd rather have a Ranger Assault Rifle than a Hammer AR, or a Striker Burst Rifle, or an MK7. Now, to be fair, all 3 of those assault rifles are really, really good, but considering that Chapter 3 was the chapter that assault rifles were all really, really good, it's baffling that the terrible Ranger Assault Rifle was also a debut weapon of that chapter. I mean, we had the Stinger SMG, the Combat SMG, the MK7, the Striker Burst Rifle, the Hammer AR, the DMR, which, you know, debatable on that one's good, and the Epichrome Burst Rifle, along with some pretty good shotguns like the Striker Pump and the Prime Shotgun, and the Ranger Shotgun, and we had the return of the Drum Shotgun, but then we just get the Ranger AR still there the entire chapter. And that's gonna wrap up the end of F tier. I've decided that I'm going to make this into a multi-part series rather than editing together a whole entire like multi-hour video, because that's gonna take forever. If you made it this far into the video, consider liking, subscribing. Helps out the channel a lot. According to my analytics, apparently at least 12 or 13 of you guys are from the UK, and 31 or 32 of you are from Japan, which it's crazy that I'm getting views from those kinds of places. And then apparently 700 Americans, which Americans are kind of the target demographic, so that's not too surprising. But over 99% of the people who watch my videos don't subscribe, so feel free to push the funny color button, and I'll see you guys soon for the E tier list. Alright, see you guys.